Meeting to order. To order? To order. We call the roll?
Senator Case.
Present.
Senator French.
Here.
Senator Ide.
Here.
Senator Pappas.
Here.
Chairman McEwen.
Here.
All present, Mr. Chairman.
The first thing on the docket, we're gonna start and finish up Senate File 96, Wyoming Gold Act. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to comment further on it? And we have 3 people online, Donna. Let's bring them in.
Mr. Chairman, it looks like we have 2 people for the Wyoming Gold Act.
Sounds good.
I'm admitting Josh Fair. And correction, the second person who registered for the Wyoming Gold Act has not joined the meeting yet.
Can you hear us?
Hello, yes, I'm hearing you. Am I okay?
You are, we can hear you. Just identify yourself and give us your testimony.
Great. Josh Fair. I live in Casper, Wyoming, and I have two companies in Casper. One is Scottsdale Mint, and the other one is the Wyoming Reserve Opportunity Zone Fund Corporation. Both of my companies are involved in precious metals, so the gold industry. Scottsdale Mint has been a manufacturer for roughly 16 years, and we manufacture gold and silver legal tender coins for central banks all around the world, for private banks, and then also provide wholesale product all over the world. Our vaulting operation provides high security, state-of-the-art for banks, private high net worth individuals, and also perhaps other states that are moving, and I'll talk into that. And it's basically a high security, physically armed guards, fully insured facility. So I thought I would just add a little color to how our industry works. So it's really all about insurance. And so you have to have a lot of things in place for Lloyd's of London to have these assets fully insured. So when gold comes into our facility, it is insured fully. So whoever is storing with us, that material comes in and it is physically protected and fully backed, fully insured. As we work with larger institutions, let's just say the state were to explore the purchasing and owning of physical gold, our recommendation would be to introduce to you a few of the banks, the large banks, like a JP Morgan, a Wells Fargo, a TD Bank, and there's a few others. And these are the same banks that sell the gold to the Federal Reserves, to the other central banks in the world. And so you'd have direct access to that type of liquidity. They offer guaranteed weight and purity, and they're there to buy it back at any time. Our vaulting facility, or another vaulting facility that you could so choose, simply is the custodian and provides that protection and the insurance. Audits take place in our facility every quarter. And we could also do surprise audits. So the state or any other customer would have access to their gold, and they could look at it, review it. And in fact, it could be in its own special cage inside of our Class 3 vaults. So that's essentially how it works. So full inspection, audits, everything's done, world class. This is exactly what at a high level is needed. I was hoping to have Joe Cavatoni of the World Gold Council. He was he must have missed the slot to testify today. The World Gold Council is involved they advise over 70 central banks around the world and a lot of the states that you guys might be interested to know. World Gold Council they also with State Street launched and sponsored the GLD ETF. They probably manage and are actively involved in some around 80 to 90 billion dollars, just from the top of my mind. In the world of states, I've got a list of states that own physical gold or other various gold products. It could be at the state or the pension level. Historically, Ohio, New York, Texas, Alaska, and also Utah is currently implementing gold purchases as we speak. And so I think this is a pretty exciting time. There's 14 different states working on bills right now. So Wyoming is not behind the curve. It currently is rated the #1 sound money state in the United States. While Wyoming may have problems, it has less problems than the rest of the United States. So kudos to our leadership in Cheyenne and throughout the state. The World Gold Council can also provide free of charge the assessment. They are willing to provide, along with a third-party firm, in addition, to analyze the full portfolio of the state, to do an assessment of various impact of ownership at different levels of how that would all work within the portfolio, as each portfolio is different and unique. And it really comes down to it's all about risk-adjusted returns. And that's exactly how states like Alaska and Texas have applied gold to their programs. And not only are you accessing with them the other states and what they're doing and how they're managing it, you're tapping into surveys from 70 other foreign central banks. So you're going to get an annual survey, and the World Gold Council is willing to provide annual training for the state of Wyoming free of charge of how to manage it. It's all about just arming the state with more knowledge of how to protect itself and what is happening all throughout the world. So hopefully this introduction of a little more data and info is helpful today, and definitely feel free to ask any questions. Joe Cavatoni is willing. He's in DC next week. He's willing to next week be on video calls and perhaps even be in person in Cheyenne the week after next. So I moved to Wyoming. Some of you may have met me. I moved to Wyoming, my family, 2.5 years ago. I moved my company. We've got roughly 50-ish employees now in Casper. Manufacturing, we're melting, fabricating, shipping, fulfilling, and storing gold actively here in the state. I would not be in the state if it wasn't for the Legal Tender Act that passed a number of years ago. And so I think it's kind of a testament to the foresight of where people are thinking and going, and allowing Wyoming to kind of stay at the forefront especially within the commodity sector. It is one of the major leaders, not just in energy, but obviously we're seeing more and more about rare earth minerals and hopefully now what will be a very big precious metals hub for the whole United States and the world right in its state boundaries.
Any questions? Senator Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Fair, for taking the time out of your busy schedule. You know, some of those statistics that you mentioned earlier on 14 states, the ones that are storing gold, would it be possible to get that data from you?
I'm sure the stuff, if it's not confidential, we will definitely be able to share some things. I think perhaps even the state of Wyoming might be surprised to know there could be some gold ownerships even within maybe its teachers' pensions and stuff like that. So this is something where it is actively being used as a strategy for states, and I would love to connect. Feel free to email me, Bob. I believe you have my contact information, and then we want to provide resources and. I didn't move here I had no idea that this type of situation would occur. I'm just a private industry, but obviously can support and work with governments around the world. I'm flying to Europe next week. Obviously, the threat of tariffs is impacting foreign governments. And so we're looking at bringing more manufacturing jobs into Wyoming. So it's a very exciting time, and would be more than willing to help bring more information and data for the state to make decisions.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you for your testimony.
Yeah. Well, I'm very much supportive of this act and where it's going, and thank you for your time today.
Guess that will close public comment. What's your pleasure?
I'll move the bill.
Second.
Bill's been moved by Senator French, seconded by Senator Ide. Discussion. We have any amendments or anything we need to do with it?
Mr. Go ahead.
Senator French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know you closed the public comment. Can I ask from the treasurer's office, I apologize forgot your name. Can she come up and I ask her a question?
I think her name's Dawn, and yes, she can.
Dawn, if I may. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome back to Revenue.
Just, we were discussing things Wednesday or whatever, and there was some testimony online that the S&P outperformed gold, except in the 3-year time frame. My question is, has every investment that the treasurer's office made money? Or has there been investments that lost money? Pardon?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
thank you. I'm Dawn Williams, the Deputy State Treasurer. And Mr. Chairman, I think it's fair to say no.
No.
No, not every investment has made money. We've experienced losses over time.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. So
Go
there
ahead,
are,
Senator
have
French.
been some investments that lost money, didn't pan out.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct, Senator French.
Thank you.
I was gonna say if there wasn't, I need to talk to you. Go ahead, Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Williams, for being here. You made some suggested amendments last time you were here. Some of them failed. We already voted on those, I think, but we'll get to that when we work the bill. But, you made a comment about not being able to do a study and you didn't have an appropriation, or I don't remember exactly what the comment specifically was, but it was along those lines. I've got a copy of one here at the table that was done by Utah. It's 10 pages. And did the comments from the gentleman, Mr. Fair from Casper, help you with, did you maybe take some notes on that where the World Gold Council would effectively write up, sort of a study on helping the treasurer's office to understand the situation? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
ma'am.
Thank you. Senator Ide, not really. The way the language in the bill reads is it's a broad edict that we're supposed to do a study that, and I just realized the last 2 pages of my bill didn't print, but it was a broad edict that we are supposed to, for the betterment and economic development of the state of Wyoming, it's a very policy-centric direction, which I don't think is appropriate for us to be making those determinations in the treasurer's office, since it's a.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just a point of order. There was a motion just made. I believe there was a motion made last meeting, so that original motion, I think, is still on the table. Because we did run an amendment last time, if I'm recalling right.
You are.
So, okay, thank you.
Donna, do we have the old?
Yes, the
Motion.
motion that was made on Wednesday was made by Senator Ide and seconded by Senator French. So is that the motion you want to stand? Is
Yes.
that- Okay.
And we had an amendment? Or I thought we
We,
stopped before we did that.
we did have an amendment that we voted on, but it failed.
Okay. Do we have any other amendments? Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the comments made from the treasurer's office on Wednesday that I believe is important here, on page, let's see here, on page 2, line 4, the language read, species legal tender between and across all state managed accounts. And I would like to propose an amendment there after talking to the treasurer's office to put in there specifically a permanent mineral trust fund instead of across all state and managed accounts. So that would be the amendment for that right there. And if Secretary can get that down. And I would like to propose another amendment. I think we can probably do these. These are kind of cleanup things from the treasurer's office. There's a comment here, and I think it's probably appropriate. I guess we can discuss it on page 3. Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move that first amendment, and then we'll propose a second amendment. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
For a second? I'd second.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask for clarification on the amendment? What,
Yes, on line 4,
mhm.
where it says legal tender between and. Yeah.
Correct.
Across all permanent mineral trust fund accounts for the purpose, so you're basically getting rid of across all state managed accounts and putting in permanent mineral trust fund. Can't talk
So
right.
striking on page 2, line 4, striking all state managed and inserting permanent mineral trust fund.
Yeah, strike
Correct.
across all state management accounts.
Strike across all state managed and insert permanent mineral trust fund. So it would
Yes.
read, starting on line 4, or I'm sorry, starting at the end of line 3, between and permanent mineral trust fund accounts. Do we want to strike?
Let's strike the and also,
And the between too.
and the between.
Okay, so I'm going to start on line 2. Paragraph Romanet I would read, holding not less than $10 million in specie and specie legal tender, permanent mineral trust fund accounts.
In,
Yes.
In, okay,
And it's just one trust fund that we want.
okay.
The main one?
in the permanent mineral trust
That's
fund.
what the treasurer's office
All right,
said.
strike accounts and put account, singular. Thank you.
Clear as mud? I think we got it. Okay, your next one.
We want to vote on this one. Move it second.
Yeah, I think we can take care of this part.
I would.
Yeah, let's do this. Go ahead.
Okay, all those in favor of Senator Ide's motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That amendment passes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, the second amendment that I've got here, which was also a suggestion of the treasurer's office on page 3, line 19. It says Committee on Financing. And correct me from the treasurer's office if I've got this wrong. Between on and financing, put capital. That would be my amendment.
I'm sorry, Senator, can you repeat your amendment, please?
Yes, ma'am. So if you go to line 19, it says Committee on, and then after on, put capital financing. The capital would be the addition to the language.
Got it, thank you.
Question, it's our second question.
On Senator Ide's second amendment, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That amendment passes. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just looking on here, there might have been one other thing. Let's see, on page 3, line 17, it says, any recommendation for legislation resulting from the study? And I think, I'm not sure where that comment came from, but I had something, any study. I don't know if there's any discussion on that or not. Do you, anybody have any comments on that? I don't know if that's needed or not, but
Mr. Chairman?
Senator Pappas?
That was part of the amendment that failed last
Okay.
week. So what I had, I changed all the mays to shall, but I also had results of any study conducted. Rather than, so strike the words "the study required" and put "any study conducted." But that was, remember, it was tied into my other amendment
that's
that
where it
they
was.
gave them a may to do the study. So, but you defeated that, and so the study now is required. So I think the old language is, okay,
Very good.
I think you can leave it like it is.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. I'm good.
Any other comments? Senator French?
Mr. Chairman, can I, is it the time to do an overall comment on this bill?
Yes.
I support this bill. Let's try this out. We have time. We can look at this. We'll be back here in a year for a budget session. I think we have time to look at this, see how this works, how it does, and make any adjustments at that time. But I fully support this.
And I would add, it's just kind of putting a placeholder in place if we decide we want to go further with it. And if it becomes cumbersome, we can just get rid of it in a year.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Case?
I'm not quite a believer, but I had fun working with you guys on it. So I don't think I'll be supporting the bill. I think it's very volatile. I don't think it's an area we know what to do with. I think having an actual thing we have to hold on to is cumbersome. And I'm worried about the transaction costs, storage costs, all those kind of things. And it's just kind of out of our lane. But, so I'm not going to support it, but thank you for the presentation.
Senator Pappas?
Mr. Chairman, I too have concerns about it, mainly because that, I just don't think the state of Wyoming ought to lock up $10 million and not make money on it. And it's going to cost us money just to hold it. If we were trading gold, it'd be a different story. People do make money trading gold, but that's not what this bill does. It's just holding it. And so that $10 million is not doing anything for the state, in my opinion. Thank you.
Senator Ide?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll kind of close things out here and try to answer some of the questions of Senator Pappas and others. This bill is just, it's just, we're tippy-toeing into this thing. I mean, $10 million is like 0.0001% of our sovereign wealth fund here. And what's going on in the world, we have to pay attention to. The debt is something that everybody should pay attention to. I mean, the inflation is real, and it's not going to get any better, at least in the near term. As the comments I made a couple of days ago, we're looking at another $24 trillion in national debt in the next 10 years. And the $1 trillion of interest payments is going to be more than our defense budget. So this is a hedge. It's an insurance policy. And it balances our portfolio other than just dollar-based investments that are stocks and bonds that are claim checks. This is physical asset. It's a small investment to learn and understand why the central banks around the world are hoarding gold more than they have in the last 50 years. And I think that this is a wise move for the state of Wyoming. As I mentioned yesterday, $10 million can be held in a small area. And we should look to protect the citizens' wealth here at our capital. And I think this is a good vehicle to really start with. And it's a small amount. And I think it's a good step for the state to learn more about it. Other states are doing it, as you heard from the testimony. And Utah, some of this is patterned after what they're doing. They've already bought, $40 billion worth of gold, and they're looking at a lot more. And to answer the good senator's question, and I'll be quiet here, it does make money, Senator Pappas. It doesn't earn yield, but when we first proposed this, or the legislature did in 2019, the price of gold is double what it was in 2019. And it's been a test and store of value for thousands of years. I mean, in bad economic situations, sovereign debt is a crisis is looming out there, and it follows and tracks the deficit spending of our government that they monetize. And the charts that I passed out to you, it's just a good way to protect that. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sensing we're ready for the question.
Yep, question.
Anybody else? Donna, will you call the roll?
This is a roll call vote on Senate File 96, Wyoming Gold Act. Senator Case?
No.
Senator French?
Aye.
Senator Ide?
Aye.
Senator Pappas?
No.
Chairman McEwen?
Aye.
We have 3 aye and 2 no, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to run to these other committees and see where they are. I'll be back.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, that Senate file has passed the committee. We'll move on to Senate File 128, repeal of sales tax on electricity. Part of this is a policy belief, and the reason we're seeing it, we already tax people at a federal level. Take that money and subsidize electricity in various forms, and then we turn around and tax the subsidy as people use it. To me, it seems like a double whammy, and it's a pretty simple bill. It just takes sales tax off of electricity for everyone. And with that, I will open it up to public comment.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Robert Short, Commerce County Commissioner, Vice President of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. As a body, we discussed this bill at length yesterday. The conclusion of the body is the concern associated with the continual erosion of revenues that are necessary for all the receiving entities to perform the statutorily defined obligations of providing services to the citizens. As we've seen a host of bills come before the legislature, working to help provide relief associated with a skyrocketing valuation that's led to increases in tax payments associated with properties, we understand and are trying diligently to find ways that are sensible to help the citizens of our state overcome these heavy burdens. I, for one, as a former business owner, have paid what seems to be extraordinary amounts of taxes over the lifetime of my businesses. And of course, I'm always looking for ways to reduce those burdens. However, at some point, the cumulative effects of our efforts may impede our ability to provide the services that our citizens have relied on, roads, bridges, etc. So we stand in opposition to this bill specifically for that reason, only because We've also believed that a consumptive tax may be the most fair way for us to provide those revenues that are necessary to fund those operations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I can't speak for the House, but I can tell you the way forward on the Senate. We're looking at 2 more bills, and if they go through, we won't even hear the rest of them. We're looking at putting language in the bill that we're looking at to where people can only take one of the exemptions. I don't want to prioritize them. If you get half your property taxes off or 25%, that's it. And I do understand, and I see where this could go. So we are tracking that, and we're working with appropriations to make sure we're not going to strand everybody. But you literally could have somebody take 50% if 69 passes. And then if they're over 65 and been in the house for 25 years, they could take 50% more. And then if they have an income level, they could get a refund. And then there's a 4% cap. And then in 2026, if the People's Initiative passes on the ballot, we do understand where this is going to go. So I would just tell you that we are approaching this responsibly. We're not just throwing all these things out there without looking at the effects. But we are still going to push for some property tax relief. And it's going to hurt the state. It's going to put a ding in the counties and cities. It's going to put a ding in the schools. But we're trying to manage that and make sure it's doable. And I think right now we're pretty much cleared for the next 2 years. And 69 may or may not be backfilled. Stand by on Monday. We'll find out how that drama plays out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, or good afternoon, I guess, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Travis Deti with the Mining Association. And obviously, we're going to stand in support of this. Our industry comprises some of the largest users of electricity in the state of Wyoming. Our industry is one of the most heavily taxed in the state of Wyoming, and we would obviously support this bill for some sort of relief. Mr. Chairman, I'd stand for questions.
Welcome to Revenue, Mr. Deti. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Jody Levin. I'm here on behalf of the Trona and soda ash industry. We also stand in support of this bill. Wyoming is unique in many ways, and one of the ways we're unique is that we have a far larger industrial load in Wyoming than you do residential. That's not true for most states or for all the other states. You have a much more equal balance between industrial and residential. That's not true in this state. So the increases that we have seen in electricity have been borne by largely by your industrial consumers. The Trona industry is a major industrial consumer. Next to labor costs, electricity is their second highest expense. So we also stand in support of the bill. We appreciate some awareness on the topic as well. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Pete Obermueller, President of the Petroleum Association of Wyoming. Pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for bringing this bill. This is an important bill for my members, similar to our friends in the Trona industry. Second to labor, electricity costs are the highest input costs for producing your oil and gas in Wyoming, no matter how big or small your operation is. Mr. Chairman, we've tried through various means, and I know that you have, and Senator Case has, and others for a long time, tried to get our hands around the ever increasing cost of electricity. And there's lots of ways to do it that open up the system in ways that utilities and others don't like in terms of, you know, creating more competition, you know, tearing down some of those walls and all of that. It's too big of a change. So what can we do on it? Well, this is what we can do at a relatively minimal cost, shared between the state and the locals, yes. But your explanation, which I really appreciated about the way forward in the Senate, you, Mr. Chairman, were talking about property tax, which is mostly schools and then counties after that. Sales tax is, of course, different animal. That's general fund, and that's mostly cities and a little bit counties. So it's a different pot, and understanding the holistic conversation of taxation, where you are with that, and appreciate the explanation. In this case, it's the best way we've seen in a long time that can help us get a handle of our electricity costs going forward, that doesn't blow up the system that we have in Wyoming of providing power to produce oil and gas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Dave Pickard. I'm representing Merit Energy. Merit is a legacy oil and gas producer in the Oregon Basin. We have the pleasure of having some of the oldest fields in the state of Wyoming that are still productive, but I would add marginally productive. What we have to do is pump water up and pump it back down. So we get the benefit of 2 times the load of electricity in order to produce that resource that severance taxes and ad valorem taxes are paid on. We stand firmly in support of this. I won't repeat everything that Mr. Obermueller said or Ms. Levin, but the fact of the matter is, in our operation, electricity costs are number one. It is a huge burden for us to maintain that field operational, and any relief is very much welcome, and we appreciate you bringing the bill. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman, my friend Mr. Pickard reminded me of something I wanted to mention. May I just have one more bite at the apple, if you don't mind, very quickly?
Not a problem, Mr. Overmyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry. What Mr. Pickard really reminded me of is there's a tax imbalance depending on where you produce. Merit, of course, in the Bighorn Basin produce a lot of water. They don't have associated gas. So a lot of companies in the Powder River Basin and others create some associated gas, which then they use to power their own fields and equipment at the wellhead. That's tax exempt, that use of gas. But if you're in an area of the state where you don't have associated gas, you're paying tax and electricity in order to do the same work that their competitors are doing in other parts. So I apologize that I forgot to mention that, but I do think there's a little bit of a fairness issue just between my own members on this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Overmueller. Any questions? Well, if you guys would stick around, I appreciate your testimony.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Bob McLaurin with Wyoming Association of Municipalities. Much like our colleagues at the County Commissioners Association, we are opposing this bill for a lot of the same reasons. And we also feel that the best tax policy is one that broadens the base and not narrows the base. You have a broader base and lower the rate. So we're standing in opposition to this bill. We understand the previous speaker's support for it, but we are opposing it at this point. And I think we have Mayor Collins here to give you some specifics.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Patrick Collins, Mayor of City of Cheyenne. For the past decade, Cheyenne's worked hard to position itself as a great place to do business for data centers and manufacturing. We have a great partner in Black Hills Energy that's moved mountains to provide the huge electrical loads these industries require. Today, you can see the fruit of those labors. We have 3 Microsoft campuses active in Cheyenne and 4 more campuses that they have that we'll be building in the near future. They have designated Cheyenne as what we call a hero location, meaning that they'll have a gigawatt of data capacity in the near future, which roughly is about a gigawatt of electrical consumption. We also have the first phase of the Meta development, their data center under construction. The first phase is an 800,000 square foot building That is the first of a 2.1 million square foot data center campus. There'll also be a gigawatt of electrical consumption. We've targeted data centers due to the advantages we have here in Wyoming and especially here in Cheyenne. Our weather keeps the need for cooling to a minimum. The backbone of the internet runs along the Union Pacific Railway. We have a Black Hills Energy willing to produce the electricity or to provide the electricity. We have the sales tax exemption on servers, essential for data centers to choose to site here, the land for development, and a willing governing body to support it. We cited the last Microsoft project in 52 days. We annexed them, did the zone change, the land use amendment, and the plat, which is a world record for Microsoft. And I tell you all of this because I see data centers as our Jonah Field. I see them as our Campbell County coal mine. We don't have great mineral wealth here in Laramie County to fuel our economy as many parts of our state do. But we do have a team working collaboratively to bring these great paying jobs and significant capital investment, multi-billions of dollars coming to Laramie County. And they pay significant sales taxes to fund our local and state governments. And quite frankly, that is the most significant way they pay or contribute to the state and to the city and to our county. At the end of December 2024, we had about a 350 megawatt load here in Cheyenne. At the end of this month, we're going to be about 540 megawatts. And by the end of the decade, by 2030, we think we'll be at 1,200 megawatts of electricity consumption. So in today's dollars, that would cost Cheyenne about $4.4 million if we take the sales tax off electricity. And that will be lost revenue that will double in the next few years. We've been looking for ways to grow our economy without having to come to the state for help. Building data center ecosystem is one of those strategies, and it's really been working. But this bill would take a decade of hard work and investment away and set Cheyenne and the state back financially. Thank you.
Quick question.
Sir?
You said there's a sales tax exemption on
Yes.
servers and equipment. How much is that exemption? What is that total?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know the answer to that, but I will share this with you. There's 21 states in America right now that have sales tax exemptions for the servers. The building they build, is $20-30 million, but they put $60-70 million or more, the sales tax they pay on the servers, if it was there, would be more than the cost of the building. And they refresh those servers every 3 to 5 years. And so if we're going to have, we're going to be in the data center business, if we don't have that exemption, we won't have a data center economy. It just won't happen. From what I've been told in the last 10 or 15 years, there hasn't been one data center cited in the state, a major data center that doesn't have this exemption. And I don't know the answer to that, but if they put $500 million worth of servers in there, that's $30 million in sales tax. And the building might not even be worth that much money. There's no reason for them to be here.
I understand, but like any business, the money all comes to one pot. We divide it out into different accounts, and we're given an exemption here, but we don't want to get rid of a sales tax there. And it seems to just affect one industry. It almost appears, would you feel like we're picking winners and losers on electricity tax? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that I would say that you're picking winners and losers, but what I would share with you is the impact that would have on the capital city will be tremendous. I appreciate that there was promises made to help the tax burden in our state. And when I look at the proposals in property taxes, that's going to be, probably around a 3% or $3 million impact to us. This one in December of 2024 will be $4.4 million. That's about 10% of my total budget. I'm going to struggle to try to be able to provide services that people expect. We've spent the last couple of years building our fire department, building our police department, and the fruits of that have been, we went from like 6 minutes to get our 911 calls down to 4 minutes. We've lowered crime 19.9% in the last year because we finally have enough police officers to really get after specialty teams to go after that kind of stuff. It's taken us 3.5 years to get there. And I'm afraid this is going to set us back to the point where we won't be able to provide that level of service anymore. And that's what I'm here to testify to today.
We're also working on another strategy for the counties and the cities, trying to get away from direct distribution. Right now, there's a bill in the Senate that changes the distribution of sales tax. And if we get that through, it will more than make up for the amount we are talking about right now, Mr. Mayor. Go ahead, Mr. Senator French.
That's, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's what I was gonna mention. If that makes it through, it takes, right now, the sales tax, the 4%, 31% goes back out to the towns and counties and municipalities, and 69% to the state general fund, 1% for administration, so 30% going back. The bill changes that to 50-50 to the tune of, we don't have the exact figures yet, but roughly $190 million. So it's a major amount of money that would be divvied up back out to the cities, towns, and counties, if that makes it all the way through and gets signed by the governor. So as the chairman said, we've got a lot of things we're juggling and trying to be fair and give relief to people, because we hear that all the time. Please, and I'm sure you guys do too, please help us. Please help us. You know, I'm not the grocery shopper in the family, but I've had to go to the grocery store and I'm like, what? That bag of Fritos I love? Well, I shouldn't make corn chips that I love. $6-7? What? Really? I'll eat that in one afternoon. So we're just trying to tell you, we're doing our best to make things fair and help people and give relief. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that very much. I do. But I thought you should understand the impacts we see on this. And if all those things come true, maybe the impact won't be as much, but you should at least know what we're concerned about and the impacts as we see it moving forward. Thank you.
I just wanted to kind of express one thing.
Sir.
Because over the last couple days, I know what we're doing in the Senate. I'm not sure what's up in the House, but I've heard we need a holistic approach. We need a dollar figure, and we're there. So we're not just trying to pull the rug out from under you. And in the interim, we're going to work on some reform that will change not how much, but how it's taxed. There's two different things, relief and reform. Right now, we're trying to get some immediate relief out while we work on the reform. But I wanted to tell you, I understand there's going to be some consternation with the cities and counties, but I also want to reassure you, we're looking at those costs too and trying to find ways to mitigate it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We just were made aware of that amendment a little while ago, and I think that if that bill were to go through, it would likely our position would change on this bill. I mean, our board would have to take that into account, but we understand and appreciate what that would do in terms of dollars. So, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moline.
Mr. Chairman, Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, sitting in support of this bill. My members would be some of the winners. Should this sales tax on electricity go away, the effect on individual members would be highly varied. The cow-calf guys might get a few $100s. But for my members that are pumping water for irrigation systems, when you're looking at about $30,000, I know that's not much compared to some of the other industry, but some of my members that are spending $30,000 to pump water, this would be a substantial help. And with that, Mr. Chairman, sitting in support of the bill, I'd take any questions.
Questions, anyone?
Thank you.
Okay, stand by, please. Welcome to Revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good to be here. Good to see you all. My name is Sean Taylor, Executive Director of the Wyoming Rural Electric Association. We represent all the 11 distribution cooperatives and 4 generation and transmission cooperatives across the state. We're in favor of this. Our job is, our mission is to keep the lights on and keep it as affordable as we possibly can. And that applies to our ranchers and farmers, our rural communities, our oil and gas friends, our coal friends, our Trona friends. So that's our job, is to keep the lights on and keep it as affordable as possible. And we see this as a way to do it. I do hesitate. This is the second time in the short session so far to testify in opposition to one of my board members, Mr. McLaren. But that's my job. So we're in favor. Thank you.
I would just ask you one question. Do you believe we're taxing the subsidy also? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I need a little clarification on which subsidy you're referring to.
There's quite a few subsidies out there for electricity without getting to all of them. Would you agree with that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And those subsidies go into the cost of producing electricity and the taxpayers paying those subsidies?
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that from the cooperative's perspective, we gain any, well, let me back up.
You don't make any money.
No, we don't.
I'm not implying
We're not
that.
for profit. But in the event that we take advantage of some of the subsidies, they would be taxed, or they are taxed right now. So yes, I would agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, if I could ask one more question, or could I ask you guys a question?
Yes, you may.
I would be curious if we're gonna find out what came out of the meeting yesterday on the generation tax, when we might hear what that's gonna look like or be. I'm kind of looking at Senator Case because he's on that, but that would be a question for you.
I'm kind of looking at him too. Senator Case.
He's a co-op guy.
Well, Mr. Chairman, as you know, last year we started discussing a policy possibility of doing this very thing, of removing the sales tax on electricity, but at the same time implementing a sales tax on the production of, or a different type of tax, gross receipts or production-based tax on the production of electricity, which would provide perhaps, it depends how the taxes are set, but the impact of the sales tax reduction lowers cost to Wyoming customers, and putting in an alternative cost on the production of electricity raises costs to everybody, Wyoming customers within Wyoming and customers outside of Wyoming. In Wyoming, we are the largest net exporting state for electricity. So what this means is that we would have a significant financial gain. We could actually, just imagine if we adjusted the two taxes, then our existing citizens and businesses would pay no more, but we would export a very large amount of tax burden that we would collect, more than the sales tax we're giving up. And so I guess that begs the question. I would be opposed to this bill in the sense that it would deprive us of that policy ability. And that policy question is a good one for this committee. It's a good one for Wyoming because, as we all see, the makeup of electricity production is changing. And it's moving from being very fossil fuel intensive to more renewables relatively. And there is now some LSO data. I think it's going to be made public. I know it's going to be made public. I just don't know if it's public yet. That shows that where the growth is going to be in the renewable area, we don't have an advantage in the taxation of that. Whereas, and so to be able to have a tax policy that collects from the production of electricity for the next 100 years, for example, is a very big thing for Wyoming. It's huge. And it could be what makes a difference and eventually makes up for severance or whatever happens as we transition, but it's a new source of revenue which we wouldn't impact our state customers if we balance it by getting rid of this tax. And just by way of being clear here, we tried to do this last year, but there were lawyers for representing electricity producers that said you cannot possibly do that. That would be illegal. That would violate the Commerce Clause, on and on and on. Well, we have an answer. The purpose of the briefing yesterday was to hear from our lawyers that we hired, so it was privileged lawyer communications. It's clear that we can do that. We absolutely can do that. And there's a bill to be filed in the House that accomplishes that looks at these things. So they have to all fit together. It's complicated. But it's got good possibility for Wyoming.
Two things. First, I'm glad it's not in this bill. This would be hard to tackle both at once. And second, wherever we end on this, when we get to the end of session, if we don't get there this session, that would be a fantastic interim topic. And I would hope that you would bring it.
And Mr. Chairman, it has to start in the House because the electricity tax part, it's a revenue measure. Some people will argue that this is a revenue measure, and LSO, there's times in the past where getting rid of a tax in the Senate was considered a revenue measure and shouldn't start in the Senate. That's not my argument to make. But absolutely, if we don't achieve these goals in this session, we should work on it in an interim. It's a huge, important issue. And now that we have sound legal basis for it, all of a sudden, it's like the sun came out from a cloudy day. But I am worried that if we repeal the sales tax on electricity, we lose our leverage to have the other tax go into effect as well. So solution might be to have a delayed effective date or tie the two together, or I don't know, to give us time. And this kind of it's a carrot and stick kind of thing. But if you give away the carrot, you can't use it the next time. You don't have anything to use.
I think you still have the stick.
I know, but can you imagine how hard it would be to raise the cost of electricity on Wyoming customers? That's what it would matter.
Senator Ide.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question for Sean here. These subsidies, always like to bring the subsidies up. The good chairman brought them up. With the new administration, I think, the subsidy racket kind of lifted off with the last administration in a big way with so-called renewable energy. What's your take being on the ground? Is that all going to dry up like it should, or what is your take on that? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Ide, I'm going to wade in some muddy waters here, but it's kind of here. I think this is our take. If there's subsidies to be had, and we can take advantage of those to reduce the cost to our members, then we're going to do it. And we have our generation and transmission cooperatives have done so, and put in for a fairly large amount of money from the federal government. Because if it's there and we can use it to help our members, then why not? If they go away and we've already done a lot of planning and kind of banked on receiving some of these subsidies, and if those go away and then we can't do that, we can't apply those or use them to help our members, that's a problem for us. So I know where you're coming from, Senator Ide. It's a catch-22, right? If they're there and we can use them to help our members reduce the rates for our members, again, whether it's the rancher or the oil and gas company or whoever, we're gonna do it because otherwise somebody else will. So now that we've planned for that and they go away, that's a sticky situation, right? Because we've planned for it, and then if we can't use them and we can't do it for the betterment of our members, I'll probably just stop right there because I hope you understand where I'm coming from. It's all right. Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions? Well, I appreciate your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other testimony? You can come up too.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you again for the opportunity. Robert Short, Commerce County Commissioner, Vice President of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. The discussion here has been really enlightening, but one of the things that it brings to mind is Wyoming is one of the lowest energy cost states in the nation when it comes to electrical power. It's one of the reasons why data centers wish to locate here. And as well, cryptocurrency miners wish to locate here. Cryptocurrency miners are massive consumers of electrical power, and they provide almost no income to the state of Wyoming. Full-time equivalent jobs associated with operating crypto mining operations are less than one. We will see, more than likely, a high level of interest in expanding crypto mining operations in Wyoming should we eliminate a sales and use tax associated with electrical power consumption. We will see an increase in service requirements associated with those operations, and we will see a diminished ability to provide those services if we don't have the revenue to offset it. I appreciate the discussion for a 50-50 split associated with distribution of sales tax, but if we eliminate sales tax, 50% of nothing is still nothing. So I would ask the committee to think clearly about what the potential impacts look like when we open the door for people to come into our state and bring in operations that do not provide employment opportunities for locals and do not in any way bring in additional revenue to help offset the impacts that they bring to our state. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would gently push back on a statement you said, and I would ask when we break up today, I could get your email address. I'll send you the study and a graph that shows you that Wyoming pays more for electricity than any other state in the nation. And the second place is quite a bit farther behind. We are paying a lot for electricity here. Part of it's the rural nature. Part of it is the combination of the power. But I would like to provide that for you. I didn't do the study, so if it's wrong, you can tell me. But I would like to share that with you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Kara Choquette. I work for Power Company of Wyoming and Transwest Express. They're subsidiaries of the Anschutz Corporation that have been investing in a very large wind power plant in Carbon County, south of Rollins, for almost 16 years now. I've been part of the electricity tax discussion since 2016, and I just wanted to offer a lot of data and experience I have on this issue as you're considering these issues, given the reference that was provided to taxing all electricity made in Wyoming. At a very high level, I would just say that the data shows the percent of electricity Wyoming is exporting to external markets, east and west, is declining. In 2023, the amount of electricity that Wyoming exported was 55.6%, the second lowest amount since 1990, according to the EIA. So I just, again, wanted to offer, I have a lot of data and experience on this issue. Happy to help the committee. I know it's a little bit adjacent to this bill, but because the broader electricity tax topic was brought up, I thought it'd be appropriate to comment, so thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, if you all stick around, we'll continue. Do we have any other testimony?
Mr. Chairman, we have someone on Zoom that signed up to testify on this bill.
Bring them in.
I'm admitting Chief of Police Mike Thompson.
Mr. Chairman, Mike Thompson, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Thompson. I'm the Chief of Police for Evansville, Wyoming. This particular bill strikes quite a deep nerve with our community. Was just down Wednesday in front of your committee on the direct distributions. Evansville receives about $265,000 a year from the current sales tax that comes off of electricity. Our particular community has 130 industrial/commercial businesses, and our population is only about 2,700 people. We sit next to Casper, Wyoming. The industrial partners is really a critical part of our community because of our small population. You know, we compete with Casper, Mills, Barnum, Glen Rock for personnel. Our emergency services, fire, police, to include our public works, we assist Casper and the other communities around us. And a couple things like the good commissioner from Converse County was talking about crypto mining. We have two of these large crypto mines right here in Evansville. We really don't see any income off of it. For those that are not familiar, the small crypto miners use about 1,000 watts to several kilowatts, and then the larger rigs will use much higher, so we don't really see much. Sinclair, Wyoming is similar to us. They're a much smaller population. They have half of the refinery in the little town of Sinclair down there by Rollins. They have 363 people, and they receive roughly $26,631 according to clerk this morning when I talked to her, just in December of 2024. Sorry, I got some notes going through here. So bar none, same month of last year, bar none received $6,500 in the same tax, which is $13,500 less than the town of Evansville. Bar none's population is roughly 3,500 right now. So it helps show the contrast between the industrialized communities versus the more residential or bedroom type communities. And the good mayor of Cheyenne talked about the data centers, which I won't dive into, but we have some interest brewing up here. The town of Evansville, as most of you know, there's about 41 agencies in the state of Wyoming looking for officers. We're all competing with each other. New Gillette right now is at I think it's $32.50 an hour for no experience, and I can only start at $25.50. I have to compete with Casper. Casper competes with Gillette. Gillette has a lot of extra money, between the coal mines, the oil and gas industry, et cetera, up there. For me, a new officer for the town of Evansville, it costs us roughly $87,687, and that in the wages, that's your FICA, your workers' comp, retirement, health insurance, and what have you. So beyond just the police department, one of the things, Evansville and Mills has full-time fire departments, and which kind of an oddity for the state of Wyoming for communities this size to have a full-time fire department. Our fire department does between 80 and 100 incidents per year or per month that they respond to, include helping Natrona County, city of Casper. Under the National Fire Protection Association policies, they have a minimum staffing rule of three people per structure engine, and they're looking to move it to 4, according to the fire chief when I talked to him this morning. That ties into the insurance service office, and although we had some good testimony from an insurance provider earlier, one of the things is if we lose our fire department, right now we're at a rating of 2, which is very good. Casper has a rating of 1. And should we lose that and go back to a volunteer fire department, we're going to get bumped back to a 5 or 7. The lowest is, or the worst is a 13, is my understanding, which is more rural. So when we start losing lots of money, we're going to have to cut positions. And currently, if we lose our full-time fire department, and right now we're looking at if we lose 50% property tax and we lose this tax on electricity right now, we're going to lose just over $600,000. That's 6+ positions just in the town of Evansville. So that will cost us our fire department. That's going to cost me at least 2 police officers. That's going to cost us public works people. So when we lose our full-time fire department, that's going to cost all the homeowners within the fire protection districts insurance costs to go up, essentially. And You know, we talked about on Wednesday, there was testimony from the clerk in Upton about that the direct distributions won't make up for the loss in property tax should the 50% model go through in the legislature. That is the same thing for our community and most small communities at this point. So unless you're going to change the direct distribution percentage to 42 or 45%, which obviously the state doesn't want to do that probably, this bill, should it pass, may turn some small communities into ghost towns, because when there's not enough money to fund public works to pick up people's garbage, they're going to start leaving our smaller communities. They'll go to the bigger communities, which, mind you, Cheyenne, you know, the good mayor talked about the impact that they're going to see, and Casper, they're going to be impacted. You know, but they will still have enough to at least support some of these services that I'm talking about. You know, looking at the whole big picture, with all the different tax cuts, I think this is a very dangerous bill to potentially pass and push through right now. For a lot of, you know, the bigger communities might sustain a little better, but most of our smaller communities, and I've had the privilege of serving as a chief for 3 of them and living in 6 of our counties, I don't think you're really looking at the whole big picture right now, how this is going to affect the entire state of Wyoming. You know, and earlier there was some discussion about subsidies and taxing. It's no different than you know, we charge a tax, so processed food. So when you eat your pasta at Olive Garden, your hamburger at Wendy's, or your steak at Texas Roadhouse, those are all subsidies. There's subsidies that go to farmers and ranchers. So it's no different concept. And I urge you to really reconsider. I get the feeling that you've made your mind up, but this is going to be devastating to a lot of the small communities and the services we can provide, not just to our community, but the support partner communities that we work with. And for that, Mr. Chairman, I stand for question.
How much of your sales tax revenue comes directly from the electricity portion of sales tax, please?
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is it's about 6%. Right now, and then out of our 4% sales tax, we only get about 700 and some thousand on our 4% sales tax here in Trona County, because again, it's population based being distributed that way. So the bulk of any sales tax in Trona County goes directly right to the city of Casper, and of course we border them right there on that north border along I-25. So about 6%, could be up to 10% once I get all the numbers. I only had about 2 hours to put some numbers together for you, Mr. Chairman.
And I appreciate the work. So the cut would be about $42,000 to your community, if I'm doing the math right. Is that correct?
Negative, Mr. Chairman. If we lose the sales tax on this, I've got the accounting sheet right here. It's roughly $265,000 to Marvin. That's just that's between Black Hills Energy and Pacific Power. That's just the 265,000 is just for Black Hills and Pacific Power. That's how much we lose here. And then if you add in the testimony, so then if you look at the 50% on the property tax and what we lose there as well, that's where it pushes up to almost 600,000 alone for our community that we're going to be losing. We are purely all industrial here. That is what supports and keeps this particular community thriving, is the industrial side of it.
And I understand you're talking about more than one exemption, but my question is, if 6% of your sales tax revenue comes from electricity and you're getting about 700,000 a year, the quick math to me is it's just on this bill alone is 42,000. If I'm doing something wrong, please help me.
I don't know where you're coming up with 42,000. Our yearly intake, so we use Cassell as our accounting software here. So our yearly intake by the lines each month, when you tally it up, is about 265,000 for the entire year of 2024 for the town of Evansville. So like, for instance, in 12/20, we've got quite a few checks came in. So December of 2024, our intake revenue was $19,875 just for the month of December 2024. And so when I thumb through here, so as another example, so May of 2024, we took in roughly $25,180 just through Pacific Core and Black Hills. So this particular tax on electricity, if it goes away, we lose a substantial amount of money. It's about 3 positions within the town of Evansville alone. And then looking at the whole big picture with any other potential tax cuts or things put in, it is going to cripple our community.
So your sales tax off electricity is much higher than 6%? Is that what you're telling me?
I couldn't tell you the sales tax off the top of my head. I didn't get that from the clerk.
Okay, thank you. Oh, we appreciate your testimony. Thanks for stopping in. Do we have any other public comment? I will close public comment and we will work the bill. Senator French.
Mr. Chairman, I will move the bill.
Second. Bill's been moved by Senator French, seconded by Senator Ide. We can go through it. It's actually pretty simple. It just takes the sales tax off electricity. Are we ready for the question?
I believe so, Mr. Chairman.
Donna, will you please call the roll?
This is a roll call vote on Senate File 128, repeal of sales tax on electricity. Senator Case,
No.
Senator French,
Aye.
Senator Ide. Aye. Senator Pappas,
No.
Chairman McEwen.
Aye.
We have 3 aye and 2 no, Mr. Chairman.
Senate File 128 has passed the Revenue Committee. Bearing anything else, we will adjourn. We're adjourned.
We're not doing.
We don't have enough time.
No, it's not even close.
Okay.
The other thing is,